First, the bad news. SAP Business AI won't generate amusing holiday cards, but it will personalize career paths for your employees and let you know which suppliers are best so you can be ready for the next opportunity. Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right, we're talking about Longlegs on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from, fuck if I know, like the mid-1990s. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. We're going to unpack all the goriest of details of 2024's Longlegs in the hopes that an FBI agent's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to hold on to that very lifelike doll of me as a 9-year-old. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
We should have done this a couple of weeks ago, so I could have greeted you with, oh, there he is, the almost birthday boy.
I feel like this robbed my birthday of the joy that I had. It's really, it is, it's quite a motion picture, Gina. I'll say that right away. Like, I know it's controversial in the sense that it has both very positive reviews and very negative reactions. And I think both of those are just fine because this movie just ain't for everybody. And miraculously, it's for enough people that it made $101 million at the box office so far.
Yeah, that's a fucking miracle. I was going to say that it's this year's Skinamarink,
Sure.
except that Skinamarink made no money.
Right.
It made like 30. It made a deal through Shudder or wherever
right.
it went to, but it made no box office money. Whereas this made a lot of box office money. This surpassed expectations by far.
Yes, I mean Skinamarink made millions, small millions, but cost 2 dimes rubbed together really hard. So everything past it being purchased by Shudder was profit. Whereas Longlegs made for $10 million, and I think all 10 million is on the screen, is a 10 times multiplier. So I would say that is a resounding fucking success for Neon, and they should be congratulated for it because the way they got butts into seats for this movie was fantastic marketing.
Yeah, I when I was doing my write-up about this for my newsletter, I compared the marketing campaign for this to another horror movie that should be coming out, I think, the weekend after we're recording this, and that is the American remake of Speak No Evil. A movie which has a trailer that everybody has seen approximately 37 times since a year and a half ago.
Why is it the horror trailer that has been shoved down everyone's throats?
I don't know, but it is also unique in its marketing in that it essentially shows the entire movie.
Right.
Like if you
not to mention the fact that it's a remake you can watch right now on Shudder.
Yeah, I guess if you didn't see the original, maybe there would be some mystery to it. But if you have seen the original, it's like, this is the whole fucking movie.
They're not holding anything back.
Entire movie. The only thing they're not showing is the ending, and that's because I had the feeling that they're going to I think they're going to cop out and give it a different ending than the original, because the original ending is bleak.
Yes, Becky leaned over to me, and this had played that trailer played before Deadpool and Wolverine. I think another reason why everyone's seen this fucking movie or trailer rather, and she's like, "What is this?" And I said, "It's a remake of a movie I've watched, and I never want to see it again."
Yeah, that is a one and done. They
Yeah.
have to they have to soften the ending. They have to. I would be shocked if they didn't.
I would be shocked if they didn't, but I also wonder what the point of it is if you change it.
I mean, far be it from an Americanized remake of a horror film to be softened and have its teeth removed.
True. It certainly none of the other teeth were removed. But let's see. I don't know. I don't need to see that again.
No,
I did that. It happened. I checked it off the list. Don't need to go back. And it's not like bummer endings aren't doing well at the box office, hence Longlegs. Now, of course, before we discuss any component that might be a spoiler of Longlegs, should we just have a small spoiler-free reaction so that people can make up their minds whether or not they want to listen to us before or wait until after they watch the movie?
I mean, it's already out on streaming. Well, for rent. I don't know if it's like free streaming yet, but
Yeah.
So
No,
I mean,
it's definitely a rental or a buy.
I mean, do we want to do we still need to put do a spoiler format when you can actually watch it before listening to the episode?
Well, that's true. I mean, just off the top of my head, I think this is well worth everyone's time and attention. It's one of the better horror movies this year. It still ranks below First Omen for me personally, but highly effective, incredibly well shot. Can't wait to see what else is up Oz Perkins' sleeves. I love his bad attitude. He really has a relationship with the devil that I enjoy watching. And I guess the question is whether or not it's between this and Blackcoat's Daughter of which one is my favorite. I still think Blackcoat's Daughter, it ranks a little bit higher for me, just because of the overall, it just finishes the rotation before it lands, perfectly for me. And the landing here is a little bit more awkward, but I enjoyed every second of it.
I mean, anybody who follows me or socializes me on social media knows that I saw this opening weekend. I have been raving about it ever since. This is actually my favorite horror movie of the year. I like the first Omen a lot, but this is still up there. This is still at the top for me.
Understandable.
I thought that the marketing campaign was incredible, and I wish that more, particularly horror movies, would take a page from it and leave audiences wondering what the fuck is this about. And I when I think back to all the different ad campaigns and how each one made it look like something different. Like, well, maybe it's about like a guy who murders his entire family, or maybe it's religious horror, or maybe it's cult horror. And it turns out, well, it's none of those things exactly.
But all of them?
But elements of them all at the same time?
It's a big old stew of influences.
Exactly. Question mark?
I'm reaching a different register. Which is something that happens continuously throughout this movie.
Oh my God.
Wowzers. It is both an excellent example of restraint and a complete lack of restraint. One of the things about this movie that let us now move, that is your spoiler free section. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this bad boy. If you need to pause here or re-download it later after you watch the movie or listen along, that's up to you. Let's go into spoiler territory. This movie is that thing where I don't think a marketing campaign could have given away elements of the actual plot of the movie, because you, without any of the mood or landing strip, I think the ideas would have exploded on impact. There's just, people would have gone, no fucking way. That is wild. I don't know how to process any of that. The only way you can is to get trapped inside of a dark room with one bright wall that shows this movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It is one of those things that really works the best when you give yourself over to it and allow that to affect you.
Right. I would look at it as, watching as the way I watch a David Lynch movie, which is,
Sure.
I don't know what's happening here and I don't care.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, I do the only thing I think this movie stumbles on a little bit for me. And I have the feeling that you had the same issue with it, because we tend to agree on these things.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think there was a need to explain everything. I think that you could have just had a stark ending for it.
Yeah.
Or left it with that, which they did. You could still use the same, ending shot of, Hail Satan, wink, kiss, which that's
Right.
like the best ending to a horror movie I've ever seen.
I mean, not since There Will Be Blood has there been a better sign off for a movie.
God, then you go right into the glam rock. It's A+++, no notes. But I do think it's like, when things are explained, I'm like, you didn't have to tell me that. You didn't have to show me. You didn't have to show me how the magic trick was done.
Yeah, I do feel like, and that's where for me, Blackcoat's Daughter just rises up a little bit, because you don't really know what's happening in that movie. You can, see, connect the dots and make a decision for yourself, but there's no definitive answer to what has been going on. There's just a through line. And if you want to say it's one thing, it can be. If you want to say it's something else, you're not far off. You're not wrong exactly. And so this is very specific. Like, okay, I've been making realistic dolls in your basement, but the devil's like, don't look down there. You can't open the door. You don't know which key opens it. And this motherfucker has been listening to glam rock at full fucking volume your entire life.
I don't even mean that so much, because, like, I accepted that. I was like, sure, okay, she's under some sort of like mind control, or she's in like a kind of advanced denial.
Right.
Like, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but something similar to abuse victims go through, where she's compartmentalized. It's her and her mother. Everything else is just like static, and she doesn't recognize it. What I meant more was the whole explanation of that. There's a literal physical object in the dolls.
Yeah.
That sort of I guess takes over the men of the families that the dolls are brought to and forces them to kill. You don't have to do that. Just, he brings them the doll. The doll has some sort of, malevolent force.
Yes.
That puts these men under the spell and forces them to kill their families. You didn't have to show the object that goes in the doll. I accept this explanation that dolls are cursed, that Longlegs is sort of the devil's UPS service, actually Lee Parker's mother is the UPS delivery service for these evil dolls that Longlegs makes, because obviously no one is going to accept a package from anyone that looks like Longlegs.
Right.
But he's the doll maker. So there's like two middlemen here for the devil's dark business.
Yeah. I agree with you. I know what the point of it is, in a sense, that when science looks at it, it doesn't see anything. But you're not dealing with a force that can be explained by science. So that when it's shotgunned and black smoke disappears out of it. Which, why wait until now to do that? I don't fucking know. That's another one someone's going to have to explain to me why his death, why Longlegs' death allows his other avatars, his human avatar, to take matters into her own hands where she can destroy that doll. Because doesn't that essentially free Lee of any sort of remote viewing or control?
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I didn't think of that.
I'm talking out of my butt because I have tried to remain as spoiler free on this bad boy as possible.
Well, I mean, I'm going to give some grace here and suggest there's a little bit of dream logic at work here.
Sure. I mean, the man's known to do it. It's the thing that I like the most about his work, actually, is how mystical and how unexplained it all is, and how you fall essentially under its sway. It is a movie about people being remote piloted by a director who essentially remote pilots your emotions when you watch his movies. It's a movie about movies, which is rare. Movies are never self-referential.
What? It's meta? Bullshit. The hell you say?
The fuck? All right, Mr. Film Guy, put it back in the canister. We haven't really discussed when this is going to come out, because you mentioned the other day, this should come out as fast as possible, which means it should really just come out this Friday. And I back up the other, movies that we have in the can right now, which is fine. But I just had this thing on Threads where someone had kind of gone a little bit viral saying that Longlegs was essentially a flop because if the movie studio thought it would make $150 million and it only made $100, then that's a disappointment. And I'm like, you're just making up shit. There might as well be unicorns fucking involved.
I was going to say that that's a real Charlie Brown had hose statement.
Again, like an assassin from a rooftop, Gina. You've nailed it in one. That's exactly what it fucking is. And I'm like, I find myself in the middle of the night writing this treatise about like expectations and what multipliers are and what P&A is. And no one fucking cares because what this man said was absolutely, I don't really know it's man, honestly. Whatever they said was fucking nonsense. I just assume it's a man because most men have nonsense just rattling around in their brains and it comes out through their fingers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this person's definition of a flop was. It's just, did you mean it wasn't a good movie? Because that's not generally what flop means.
The original post was something like, I've been reading on here that people are referring to Longlegs as some kind of flop. And I just don't see any possible way that can be, because it just doesn't fit the definition of a critical or financial flop, because it's made a bunch of money and it has good reviews. Not all of them are good, but it's a controversial movie. And underneath that, this individual is like, well, it could be considered a flop if the studio that releases it wanted it to make 150 million, and it didn't.
But did Neon expect it to make 150 million?
No one in their right mind says we're going to make a $10 million movie and it has to make 150 mil or this is dire. We're shutting the doors.
I am quite sure that this exceeded anybody's expectations.
I think they were hoping for a 3 or 4 times multiplier. They probably put 10 million into P&A. They didn't really, Mika Monroe did a couple of talk shows, but they didn't really send anybody else around in a formal sense. So you have a small junket, but they were trying to keep this as, not giving stuff away as much as possible to their credit. So no one was like, oh my God, this has to make Inside Out 2 numbers, or we have to shut the doors at Neon. That is what a fucking flop is.
I mean, it's kind of funny that someone would say that when we are sitting in the middle of a month in which you've got the 1, 2, and now 3 punch of Harold and the Purple Crown flopping.
Right.
And then what the hell was the movie that came out last week that flopped? But and then you have the woebegone, extremely misguided Crow remake that just came out.
Yeah, that's right.
And
yes.
flopped. What the hell was the movie that came out last week? That it was the same studio as the Crow.
It was Lionsgate. Like Lionsgate just like they bought like every just absolute swing and a miss. And they have in particular been holding on by a thread for a while now. And it looked like they might have put their shit together.
Borderlands was the
Borderlands. That was Universal.
Oh, okay.
And technically Borderlands has been sitting on the shelf for almost 2 years.
Yeah, and The Crow had been in development for like a decade.
10, yeah.
First, the bad news. SAP Business AI won't generate amusing holiday cards, but it will personalize career paths for your employees and let you know which suppliers are best, so you can be ready for the next opportunity. Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI.
Making your cat happy is a #1 priority. Priority #2 is keeping a clean litter box. Fresh Step Outstretch Litter helps you do both. Fresh Step Outstretch Litter traps waste at the surface with less crumbles and absorbs more waste and odor compared to Fresh Step Multicat. Find Fresh Step Outstretch Litter at a store near you today. Fresh Step is a registered trademark of the Clorox Pet Products Company. Certain trademarks used under license from the Procter & Gamble Company or its affiliates.
She said, get out the chat room and clean mine. Glad, stretch, feeling fine, so fresh.
The Glad Girl Group coming at you with a throwback jam. That was Glad Force Flex Drawstring Trash Bags featuring Pine Sol Original Scent. And that's better than all good. It's all Glad.
In a world of dry eye, there's a long-lasting solution that can save the day. Presenting Sustain Complete Preservative Free. Its unique formula gives 8 hours of relief from the common symptoms of dry eye. So say goodbye to dry, tired, irritated, sore, burning, stinging, and watery eyes. And say hello to multi-symptom relief. Available in a store near you. Sustain Complete. Open your eyes to lasting relief.
Sidebar. I don't know who in their right mind looked at the original Crow and said, you know what we should do with this remake? We should try to Batman Begins it. Why? You go into the world of the Crow. I don't want the Crow to come to my world. It's not cool. It's not different than anything else that's been done before. You know what is? The Crow. Stop trying to make the Crow other fucking things.
Let's try it so he doesn't put the makeup on until over an hour into the movie.
Oh my god!
You know how long it takes him in the original? About 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, it also helps that they had to cover up for his accidental death. So some of that is like a weirdly, we have to do this because we only have so much footage of him and so forth. So like, there's a lot of like, this is what we have to do. It works for whatever reason. It works in that movie. And it has never worked since. And it has never stopped anyone from trying. They just keep trying to Crow when the world holds up its hands and goes, no mo Crow. And
but yeah, when you look at that, I don't know how you can, with any sort of sense of logic or reason, look at the success of Longlegs and say, yeah, well, the movie industry is just going down the turlet. I mean, no, it kind of suggests that, certain kinds of movies are going down the turlet, and that maybe audiences actually are hungry for new and innovative approaches to genre films.
Yeah. Just for the sake of argument, but The Crow, this new one, had a budget of $50 million and grossed 9.3 in its opening weekend. Not that opening weekends are the only thing, but that's a movie that's automatically in dire straits in terms of its financials. Whereas when this thing has made 100 million worldwide, before it enters VOD, before you start licensing it to streamers, you are doing great.
Right. And the really excellent publicity, and both from within the studio and the publicity it's getting on social media is going to compel people to watch it again, because as it turns out, there's a lot. I mean, I don't like to use the phrase Easter eggs, but there's, if you look on TikTok, there's a whole lot of here's what you might have missed because you busy focusing on the plot, like the half a dozen or so times that the devil is in the background.
Right.
Which I've watched a TikTok a couple times, and I'm like, oh my, yep, there he is.
There he is.
Or that, the whole thing that Longlegs is a failed glam rocker, and that the reason why he looks so weird is from a series of botched plastic surgery, or that his clothes are because it's all shit that like Lee's mother has been slipping him, like thrift store clothes and all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much fucking sense. I totally didn't notice that. And now, I do want to watch it again to see what else I might have missed.
Yeah. There's a rich tapestry to it. And I just, like, if you had tried to explain to audiences that beforehand, I don't think it would have caused the reaction it did. Now, obviously, the hype went through the roof. And when you have hype that big, you can cause a pop like this had a over $20 million opening. Like, it made money immediately. But the fact that it kept making money means it keeps getting enough of an audience that's like, it worked for me, that kind of belays the, well, this is just utter crap. I also believe it's just not meant for everyone. This is a very specific movie that just landed at the right time with the right people at the moment people wanted this kind of thing.
Yeah, I keep comparing it to Skinamarink, and I don't want to, not in the same way that nothing happens, because a lot happens. But again, it is mostly a vibe. Yeah, you've got a lot of work with liminal space. You've got it's an immediate sort of desolate, lonely mood because you're in this shitty little town that, like, and God looks like somewhere in the Midwest. I have no idea, but everything is bleak and quiet, and there's never more than 2 or 3 people in one place at any time. Mm-hmm. And just everything is just not right. You have this scene in which she goes to interview a survivor of one of the mass murders, and it's what's her name, Kiernan Shipka from Mad Men.
Is that who that is? Because I've seen that face before.
Yeah, it's Kiernan Shipka, and she's talking in like this weird sort of like, not backwards, but like it's like very, to me, it reminds almost of something Stephen King-esque. Like everything she says sounds like it's some kind of riddle.
Like it's a lot of thanksy, like Dark Tower talk.
So I'm like, he was just standing there just proud as peaches, and I'm just like, what the fuck is she saying? And I'm like, and I feel like that is probably intended to be some sort of code,
right?
That, like, either the audience is hey, audience, you're feeling ambitious, you can try to figure out what she's saying. It's sort of our friend Megan, when she got the Fangoria issue that has the code on the cover, her husband solved the code. And it turned out to be the teeth of the Hydra, or the teeth of the Hydra are on you, which is a line from Hang a Cock, Get It On, which I'm like, that's so fucking great. God, I love you, Oz Perkins.
It's so very specific. And I think Yeah, I don't bump up against anything else in this movie in terms of its portrayal or the casting or those choices. But I think we should probably get into it right away, because if there's anything that's going to nudge you, I think, out of what this movie's trying to do, it is Nick Cage. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. And there's thought behind this in terms of he obviously wants this person to be androgynous. He, like a lot of glam rockers, were androgynous. That Longlegs can, because he inhabits so many other people, he doesn't have an individual take. He's kind of an amalgam of all the people he's ever inhabited. And therefore, he is feminine and he is masculine and he hates both halves of himself. And he obviously wants to destroy families. And that's a big component of this movie. And he is absolutely going to 11 in this character. And you either are on board with that, or I think that's going to bounce you right out of this movie's orbit.
Well, I do think that at this point, if you haven't seen Longlegs, like, you know what he looks like in it.
Yeah.
And you know that the weird voice he puts on so I think that most people at this point understand what they're in for. But again, and I will talk about this, that this is the right way you do an ad campaign. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it was maybe they did at least 3 trailers before it even got out that he was in it.
Right.
And I think that was a smart move, because unfortunately a lot of people look at Nicolas Cage with the same regard as I would compare to M. Night Shyamalan. Right. Where the minute he is mentioned, they're like, oh boy, here we go.
He's packing a bunch of luggage into whatever he's a part of. And again, live by the sword, die by the sword. It's either the best thing that can be, or it can kind of stab you.
Well, the problem is the problem is he's done in these past couple of years some of his best work.
Right. Absolutely.
And he is not. I mean, I would rather see a head about to pop off Nicolas Cage than a sleepwalking Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And he is absolutely giving his all in this. And it's almost poignant, because it's like, okay, here's what, like, have you seen the movie Pig?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Well, again, a totally different role and playing it, much more closer to the vest, but you could really see the absolute difference in him doing a movie that he really believes in and wants to do.
Yeah.
Like a movie that I was really, really disappointed by was I no longer even remember the name of it. The movie he did with Pedro Pascal maybe 2 years ago.
Yes.
Where he's essentially playing himself.
Mm-hmm. He
could not look more bored in that movie. And it was so disappointing. I mean, like, Pedro Pascal was pretty much carrying the weight of that movie. And I just feel like it's like, he got there and he was like, this wasn't the movie I wanted to make. But here he is firing on all cylinders.
Yes.
And even in talking about making the movie, just the enthusiasm is there. How this was creating this character was a team effort with him and Oz Perkins, and mm-hmm. And you can see that enthusiasm and that effort comes through in ultimately an extremely unsettling character.
Yes.
Like the part where he sings to a young Lee, and let me tell you, your opening, I would literally had to cover my mouth with my hand. Otherwise I was going to be pulling a Muttley in the background. Like when you're in, like, I again watching that in the theater, mm-hmm. and of course that was probably the first scene to get spoiled on social media. Now it's pretty much become a meme on like TikTok and all. But if you were like, you boots on the ground first to see that scene, it is so weird and so funny, but in a deeply uncomfortable way. where like, you know, half the audience is sort of giggling and half is like, the fuck? Like, it's like,
I'm a nervous laugher. And so I was literally covering my eyes and laughing at a couple points in this entire movie because I don't know what else to do.
Right.
I don't know where to put my brain.
Right, exactly. It's like, yeah, that's really weird and funny, but like imagine like someone just coming up to you and just like screeching at you like that.
Yeah.
Like you would just be kind of like, you know, frozen like, is he about to stab me in the face? Because I think he's about to stab me in the face.
And, you know, I've seen here and there people like, how exactly does this guy escape detection? And at what point do you go, well, that's just a weirdo? But just the other day, we were treated to a vice presidential candidate going into a donut shop and being unable to talk to human beings. It is without a doubt the cringiest fucking thing. Like I start off like, is this doesn't seem that bad. And then is like, I'm running for vice president. And the person behind the counter, all she can do is like, okay.
Well, that's the thing. I think that, you know, a lot of weird people who, you know, kind of get off on making other people uncomfortable, you know, are banking on, you know, I'm just going to stand here and let you do your thing and then just hope you quietly leave and never darken my doorstep again.
Right. And that is ultimately, I think the biggest thing about Longlegs in terms of its ingenuity is taking that remote viewing idea or body ride idea and transmuting it into a straightforward FBI procedural up until the point where it simply can't sustain that anymore because it's just gotten so fucking weird.
Right.
And a credit to everyone else in this cast for the insanely straightforward manner in which they present their characters, because you can only have one high flyer.
Right. Yeah, you can't have like I think there's a potential for Alicia Witt to get there, but she restrains herself and is not quite as out there as Nicolas Cage is.
Well, and her entire identity is wrapped up in not giving anything away, of consistently just projecting a quiet madness that is the kind that you don't come home to visit very often. There's not much I can do. I can't break through. I'm just going to have to live my own life until I'm kind of forced to do it. And there's a reason why, because she made a literal deal with the devil.
Right. And not to get too heavy, but I feel like there's a unsettling sort of parallel to families and relationships between mothers and daughters where sexual abuse has taken place. And the mother has sort of, you know, covered it up. You know, and so everybody just living in this sort of, you know, hell of denial where, you know, every conversation, no matter what they're talking about, that elephant is there sitting on everybody. You know, the best way to just, you know, not to continue not dealing with it is to kind of separate yourself from the whole thing.
Right. You put that part of your consciousness in this separate box that you don't touch.
Right. And you know, and you can see at one point that Lee's mother was, you know, perhaps a little bit overbearing in the sense that she has a box containing, you know, every you know bit that fell off of Lee's body as a child, including like hair and teeth and fingernails.
Well, she keeps everything as like she is a hoarder.
Right. I mean, I have, you know, I'm sure you had with Ollie, you know, a clipping of my daughter's hair.
Right.
And I maybe her first baby tooth, but I don't know what happened. Still have the hair somewhere. The tooth is long gone. But I definitely did not keep fingernail clippings.
No. definitely did not. That's not something I need to hold on to.
No.
If I want fingernail clippings, he's providing me with them monthly. And
Right.
I still can't get him to throw all of them away in the trash can.
But you don't have like a little...
Love
you
them
know,
as I do.
You don't have a little trinket box filled with them.
No. And to keep on the sunny subject side of the street, this movie obviously is also playing on a domestic abuse angle in which it plays out literally the same almost every single time. That when Longlegs has Lee's mom place a doll within a family, the mothers want to speak up, but they can't. The fathers are so angry, they're telling you, I'm going to kill you. Let's go in the other room so I can kill you. And the moms are like, okay, I have to maintain normalcy. And so they do. And the children go off into a disassociative state. And it's almost as if, you can say Longlegs is the cause of this, but when it comes down to it, it's a cycle that keeps repeating. We, unfortunately, do not need Longlegs for this to happen. We don't need to get the devil involved in it. It is a cycle that repeats itself, sadly, for far too many people.
Right. No, exactly. And I do find it interesting that, and I don't want to make assumptions by him saying this, that Oz Perkins said that this was inspired, that this story was inspired by his mother. And I'm like, I wonder what he means by that. And, it's like, and I mean, unfortunately, his mother died on 9/11. So, considering the way his parents died, I think he's going to have a lot of interesting psychological horror to mine from, for years to come. But I also think it's interesting that Nicolas Cage based his performance on his own mother.
His own mother. Yeah, that's another one. That's a real wild swing.
Right, particularly his voice, which I thought was he said specifically there she is, the birthday girl. He's like, that is exactly something my mother said. And I'm like, that's kind of sweet, but kind of creepy at the same time. But it's like, but think about your own relationship with your parents. Everybody's their parents, they love their parents, but also it's very complicated.
Sure.
If you take things out of context, certain behaviors of your parents, certain things that they said, and put them in the context of a horror movie, it could work.
Yeah.
It's like it's just funny how that you can kind of easily turn that sort of thing around and make it seem unsettling, or it is unsettling and you just did not realize it because that's what you grew up with.
Right. You don't know that it's different or odd because you live with it every day.
Right. You were born into it.
Right. And that also then comes back to the idea that Longlegs not only nests himself within this house, but de facto becomes the stepfather.
He's like a stepfather. He's a boarder. He's sort of like an invisible friend, but he also haunts the house. It's all the things that terrorize children.
Yes. And the fact that basically, Lee's mom's like, you were told that there were certain corners you just couldn't look into, and therefore you didn't. And this was all to keep you alive. So it's just a wild concept to put into motion. And the fact that it's as popular as it is, I think goes to the fact that it's kind of mood and the, thematics of it still really resonate with people. There is an element of this that is just perennial. It's the Silence of the Lambs of it all. It's the X-Files of it all. There's just a lot of lingering dread that goes into this. And then when it goes for shock, the shock works.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's interesting. I've seen people speculate on, for lack of a better phrase, what's, quote unquote, what's wrong with Lee.
Yeah.
Because, somebody's like, well, maybe she's autistic, or, it's like, I think it's like, no, I think she has PTSD, but doesn't know why.
Right. Yes. When she meets, her boss's family, and he introduces like her to them, she cannot look them in the eye. She does not want to look at another family. She doesn't want to look at the dead bodies of families. This is just something she's kind of cursed with. And then when she's told it's going to be Ruby's birthday on Sunday, you would have thought a gunshot went off based on her reaction.
Right.
When she's
not doing her job, she looks like a deer caught in headlights most of the time. And,
Yes.
and then to me, that speaks more of how someone who's been abused would act in the situation. But she doesn't have any kind of recollection of much of her childhood.
Right. She is like, as you have said many times, like she just hatched. But we're not really there's a lot of stuff here that, while it evokes elements of Silence of the Lambs, it doesn't engage with. We don't see the higher ups of the FBI. We're not involved in Quantico. This is, the thing, the branch no one wants to visit because they just keep coming up with dead families every couple of years.
Let me ask you: Do you think Lee managed to keep her job with the bureau after everything that happened? Considering
there's an internal review process that's going to be very interesting. And no, I don't think she's going to be a street agent. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah,
we might keep her in a basement somewhere.
I think she's going to get desk duty, because if you have like 3 separate agents, getting killed while working with you, that's a little sus.
Well, at a certain point, like, someone's going to keep like, what exactly is it about? And then you murdered your mother. Okay. All right. Shot your boss twice. Okay. It's going to be hell on the paperwork, Gina. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for her to keep a partner.
Yeah. Right. Now let's go out now on your last case. How many people you were associated with were shot to death? And how many did you shoot to death? And what do you mean you don't drink? Maybe it's time to start.
Yeah, right. Jesus.
Holy hell. It's time for me to start drinking, because I'm going to have to think about this movie all night.
Yeah, you said that you said that you just finished watching it before we started recording, right?
Yes. All my plans were dashed by what turned out to be several days of Dancing with the Stars emergencies. I can't tell you what they are. They're not really all that important. Just know that they were all very, very last minute, and that they're shooting shit too soon. And so it required much more of my days and nights than I was anticipating. And so I was planning on watching this Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday night and Monday all day, and it never happened. I watched half of it before noon, and the other half of it right before this began.
Oh, wow. So like split in half.
Split in half, not voluntarily. I had to go back to work. So that couldn't wait. And if I didn't get it done in a quick enough fashion, I wouldn't have been able to watch the last half of it. And it was a miracle. I was able to write, fun little bits for celebrities to do when this is what's rattling around in your fucking brain, Gina. It's not exactly what I call fun time fuel.
Yeah, it's there was a little, for me, it was a little walking after, similar to it, right after I walked out of watching Seven, in that I'm just kind of quiet, like all right, that
okay.
I'm changed now.
Speaking of Seven, that's another film that this movie absolutely invokes. And the entire time she's looking at microfiche, I'm like jumping up and down, hooting and hollering.
Well, I mean, again, there's a picture of Clinton on the wall in the FBI agent's office. So let's figure it's about 95, maybe 96.
That's what I assume.
So that would have been around when Seven came out.
Yes. absolutely. And that entire library sequence feels like a variation on a theme, because what is she looking at? All of the 7 deadly sins and the 9 circles of hell and all the satanic content, which apparently her local fucking library has. Sure, why not? Nowadays, they won't let you have any books on the shelves. And so that entire time, I'm like, oh, this is what movies need more of. They need microfiche. They need someone staring at a bright microfiche machine.
Heck yeah.
That's how you learn shit.
Yes.
The internet? Fuck that.
No.
Scroll through some microfiche.
Exactly.
I have to give it up to Mika Monroe, who is an actress I've liked for a long time, and has been able to do this and that. You know, she's dabbled in bigger movies. She's done a lot of indies. Obviously, her biggest splash before this would be It Follows, which, from my understanding, we're getting a sequel to. So that will be interesting. But this is an entirely different version of Mika Monroe than I've ever even seen before. And I think Watcher was the last thing I had seen her in. And that is a very quiet performance, but not like this. This is the loudest quiet I've ever seen portrayed on film.
Yeah, I don't even think for being the protagonist, I don't even think she even has that much dialogue.
No, I don't think, because she ultimately doesn't have as much to say. Like, she is a human discovery machine. She is unlocking boxes and boxes and boxes and finding information and bringing it to people who are like, I don't know what the fuck this means. And they shouldn't. No one should know what this means.
No, you just we're fine not solving this.
She's really solid in this motion picture, absolutely committed, and you can project whatever you want to onto her face, but ultimately she is delivering a frozen deer in the headlights, but operating. Like, some part of her is still driving the car, but a lot of her is in the way back, just cowering in fear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, she has been, it's a double tragedy because she has been traumatized and she does not know why she's been traumatized.
Right.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
High Five Casino lets you play your favorite slot and live table games like blackjack with the chance to redeem for real cash prizes. High Five Casino has a giant selection of over 1,200 games, including hundreds of exclusive games only found on High Five Casino. It's always free to play, and free coins are given out every 4 hours. Ready to have your own high five moment? Visit highfivecasino.com. That's casino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply.
She can't unlock that, right, despite how much her mother has kept. And she's like, I kept everything. And she's like, oh, maybe I should investigate my childhood. And as soon as she does, she finds the picture of the hottest man who's ever lived. Who's all dressed up for the Donnie and Marie Variety Hour to give the performance of a lifetime. I was minorly spoiled in the sense that at some point I saw some social post before the movie was released that Longlegs was in relation to the fact that he's killing people remotely. And I'm like, oh, I wish I did not know that. Because I would have liked that to be completely revealed within it, because those trailers just don't give you any information, and I enjoyed every second of them.
Yeah, they're just, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
And it's all a puzzle and something to be unlocked. The other connection that I haven't seen anyone else make, but came roaring to life for me, especially in the let's go back home, whoops, my mom killed an FBI agent sequence, is Prince of Darkness.
You know what? You read my mind, because I was thinking about how you've got like you Prince of Darkness had Liquid Satan. This Longlegs has Vapor Satan, I guess.
Vapor Satan, yes, Vaporware Satan.
No, I honestly I'm so pleased you said that, because that did actually occur to me.
And plus the way the voices sound on the phone.
Yeah.
Sound like I have a message and you're not going to like it from Bugman outside.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately I'm like, oh my God, this is Prince of Darkness done a different way. It's the thing I like about even referential horror movies can unlock new avenues forward, even as they reference things that you like. It's not, and if you do it the right way, you're not just reminding people of better movies. Do I currently love, Silence of the Lambs and Prince of Darkness and Seven and, the movies that and TV shows this film references more? Yes. That is to say, this is also brand new to me. I have a lot of history with those other things, so they stand taller as a result. But ultimately, what it's doing is remixing elements that you love into a new package that you can enjoy on its own merits. And that is what horror, I feel, does better than almost anything else in the world.
Yeah, no, this hits all my buttons, because all of those movies you mentioned, I are among my absolute favorite horror movies. And I think that this will end up in the annals of that. Yeah. I think that it's one of the things it does very well is it's so quiet and so understated, and then all of a sudden like Longlegs committing suicide, just everything that just seems to have unleashed horrific violence after that point, where like you had this absolutely horrific suicide, which I used to think that the face bashing scene in
Hereditary.
No, I was going to say Crimson Peak.
My God, Janie, you're right.
Was the most horrific way I've seen someone die in a movie. This tops for me because he's doing it to himself.
I might have to stay quiet for a while because I'm having Crimson Peak flashbacks.
Sorry. Like I said, I mean, Guillermo likes seeing faces jacked up. He has a thing for it.
He does.
Like if you're not getting your face smashed, you're getting your face slashed, or you're getting shot in the face. He just likes seeing faces jacked.
Yeah. There's a rich bouillabaisse, a stew going on here that I really enjoyed the ride on. And a word of caution, if this did not hit for you, I honestly don't doubt it, because I just don't think the movie was made for everyone to enjoy.
No,
and
I totally.
There's going to be a better one around the corner for you, whoever you are. You're not bad. You're not wrong. It's just, you're just built different, and that's fine.
To go back again to the Skinamarink comparison, I absolutely understand why this wouldn't work for everybody. But what I don't want is for people to be mad about it, or to be made to feel like they were sold an invalid product, or to express disbelief, which is one of my least favorite ways to approach a movie, that other people would like it.
Right.
Just say, not for me, move on.
Yes. Yeah. And not for you is a valid critique. Like, I just don't think this hits very specific notes that either work for you or don't. And we got a lovely new review just the other day from someone who had been talking about Skinamarink and what people thought about it and why they thought the way they did. And my response to that person was, listen, if this hits the wavelength of the kind of nightmares and liminal spaces that creep you the fuck out, if that strikes that chord, it absolutely works. And if it doesn't, it's just nothingness. I don't think this can bring you over to that side. It's trying to reach into your lizard brain and activate something that you try to consciously not think about. And here, there's a level of dread of what you can control and what you can't control. And I think that works for a certain subset of people and absolutely doesn't for others. People's reactions to us were similar in that way. I think Us had more baggage coming into it simply because it was the first film after Get Out. But I think about Us weekly.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. It's not my favorite Jordan Peele, but it's the one I think about the most.
Yes. I just think it is the concept of his that truly disturbs me the most. It almost has nothing to do with the execution, which I think is fantastic. But everything about the idea going into it is creepy as fuck. And in this film, again, we don't have to compare art to art, but I do think there are similar pathways that are available to you here that while some happy families and unhappy families are all around you, there's that one where tragedy happens and it feels unexplainable and it feels like, how could this possibly happen? Well, bad shit lurks underneath people's skulls. They've got tiny steel balls filled with Satan that's called past trauma. And it leaps the fuck out of them and it causes them to do crazy shit. They're not helpless to it. They have agency. But to a certain degree, they're almost not in control because of shit that happens to them. And we all have to find our way to overcome that stuff to be more in control of how we act around people that we've committed to raising, being their partner, being a good person in the community. We have to rise above all of that shit to be the best selves that we can be. And it's not always great, but it's aiming towards perfection, not achieving perfection. Hey, it's therapy time with Patrick Hamilton.
Well, we try to, we try to go deep on these, it's not just, plot, hey, it was good. Hey, it was bad. I've been thinking about this a lot. And again, it's kind of haunting that he said that this was inspired by his mother, that this was a movie about his mother. And it's like, you could take that in many different ways. Not most of them not good, but I'm not going to try to speculate because I don't know the man, but I do know about maintaining family secrets and carrying the weight of capital T things we don't talk about. Yeah. And because unfortunately that is part and parcel with being a family. Most families have the thing they don't talk about. And here it's, it just happens to be a living being, hiding in the basement making dolls.
Yeah. Who happens to have a connection to the man downstairs, which again is another Stephen Kingism.
Right.
That just leaps out of this. And it is so designed to tickle my brain.
Yeah.
because I've been king pilled for so fucking long.
Well, it was one of those, like, the man downstairs, he's talking about himself. Oh, no, wait, no, he isn't.
Oh,
Like,
I mean, he is, and he's talking about someone else. That is the identity component of this movie, of how much you are in control of yourself versus this remote piloted thing of your lizard brain or your raw emotions, or I don't want to think about what I'm doing right now. Like you could, this is one of those movies you could talk about for 10 fucking hours.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's, the way he ends it with literally winking at the audience, it's, it's sort of like, I'm just fucking with you. Which I also like. I think that's very funny. You kind of let that sort of, all right, it's over now.
I mean, I think we should absolutely put Blackcoat's Daughter on the upcoming movies. We have a lot coming up. That's kind of that's
everything. We should do like Nepo Baby month where we where we talk about him and Brandon Cronenberg, because I am just so, I mean, I say Nepo Baby and I'm actually about to say the opposite of a Nepo Baby, where I think that they have, they've both more than proven themselves at this point. And it's just like, they're just, both of them are just doing such exciting work. And have you seen Possessor?
I have not seen Possessor.
That is, that's rough. I mean, not in a bad way. It's very good, but it's brutal. But still, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And that's what makes it so exciting. Is like, they are trying.
Yeah. I think he's such an interesting filmmaker, and Blackcoat's Daughter just hit me like a ton of bricks in a way that it's really, you're like, whatever this guy is doing next, I really kind of want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I liked Gretel and Hansel. I thought that was again, not the most exciting movie in the world, but very dreamlike, very vibey. I liked it a lot.
Yes, I think dreamlike and dream logic are a big part of what he does. And I was not the biggest fan of I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. I'll say that right away. But then again, it's Netflix. It's shot in a very different way than Blackcoat or Gretel and Hansel or Longlegs. It just feels like him fitting into something else. Whereas Gretel and Hansel was absolutely him in the most PG-13 way he could get away with, because it is a fairy tale. And I just don't think people were vibing with it at that moment in time. It was a little bit of a rough spot in there. It didn't get its fair shake, in my opinion.
No.
But I'm really excited for what he has coming down the pike, because next year, I believe we're getting his Stephen King adaptation of The Monkey.
I'm interested. When I saw that I'd heard that it was being made. I didn't know until just recently somehow that he was directing it. And yeah. I'm like, all right.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it could be really interesting. Like, that's one of those things you can, because it's a King short story, those kind of work a little bit better as movies, because there's a start and an end. There's not a monkey universe.
Well, no, but I also think about the adaptation of The Boogeyman last year, which when it stuck to the story, it was great. When it went off when it went off path, because I mean the story itself is only about 15 pages long. It's like it became, it wasn't even a bad movie. It was just really generic and uninteresting,
especially from a person who has done ungeneric things before that.
And I'm just worried that, because again, the monkey is not the longest story in the world, and it's pretty straightforward. It's about a cursed toy monkey.
Yes.
And I'm thinking like, okay, how is this going to be an Oz Perkins movie? And is he just directing it because he wanted the credit, or is he making it an Oz Perkins movie? That's what I'm curious about.
I mean, he wrote the screenplay, so this is something he wanted to do.
Well,
is
okay,
my guess.
okay.
My guess is they made this deal as Longlegs was starting to burn up the festival circuit, where they're like, let's make a deal with him before this hits so that we're in the Osgood Perkins business. And what do you want to do? So I don't think this is like a blank check necessarily, but I think he has a window that he can work with. And they're like, if you work within that window, you can do what you want. And this is what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm open-minded.
It'll be interesting. February, so not that far from now. So it's an interesting time with a lot of interesting boundary pushing, people trying shit out, lots of new voices, lots of attempts at their own version of things, not a lot of let's go back to the well. And yet when someone went back to the well with the first Omen, like that worked for me like fucking gangbusters. So it's a real good time for the horror movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't agree that it's starting to peter out. Now, again, and we have talked about this before, I do fear that over the next year, we're going to be seeing a lot of dipping back into the well of reboots and remakes because they're simply just they're cheap, they're easy, you can hammer them out relatively quickly to fill in the space that's going to be left behind from the strikes last year. So there's going to be we're going to hit a wall pretty soon, but I'm hoping that a lot of indie horror makers can fill in that space.
Yeah, I think this realm of where you make something for $5 to $10 million and it's personal, it's what you want to make. That's the real sweet spot, because it doesn't have to make the biggest amount of money in order to really be successful and be able to pay off, your producers and put some money in the kitty so you can do other things. The fact that Neon is the same house that that bought up Parasite to release it here in the States. Titan, Triangle of Sadness, Anatomy of a Fall. Everyone's like Anora, won the fucking Cannes Film Festival. I don't even know what the fuck that is. I just know it exists. And then it's Neon. So they seem to have carved out their version of A24, a less, dare I say, culty version of A24.
Yeah, no, I was going to compare it to A24, with a more openness towards moving into mainstream films, which is good. But one thing I'm hoping that this filling in the gap period will lead to is taking more chances on small filmmakers and indie filmmakers to try to find the next Ari Aster or the next Robert Eggers, because there's time to mess around, because it's going to happen, but I don't really cannot state enough that I do not care less or want another reboot of Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, again, it's coming. But
I would say this is big of a swing at creating some kind of horror icon with a definitive endpoint. If you never had another Friday the 13th part 2 after part 2, or never had another Nightmare on Elm Street, Longlegs could easily be put into that category. This is that sort of, it seems big at the time, but the longer this goes on and the deeper its lore is dug into, you've got something that kind of lives forever. That's not easy to fucking do. And I don't need it out of every horror movie, but it's nice that someone actually gave it a whirl.
Yeah, no, I found myself wanting to know, how did he end? Is his name really Longlegs?
Yeah.
Which I mean, it isn't. He just that's just how he's referred to. But it's like surely he was a normal guy at some point, or at least quasi normal. And did he sell his soul to the devil to try to make it as a glam rocker? And it's like, well, that's probably was a limited goal.
Right.
Glam rock lasted about 3 years. Couldn't be all David Bowie.
Yeah. It's everything. It's one of those things where he takes swings, and I enjoy watching the swings that he takes, because they don't all land, but I do know that he's, when he's really working at it, it's fascinating regardless.
It is. I think even his failures would at least be interesting to watch. Although to me, he hasn't had a failure yet.
Yeah. So that just about, I can't, you're either getting hit with an axe or getting shot in the fucking face.
Or you're bashing your face into a table, which I absolutely do not want.
No, there's not.
Dude,
Listen,
his jaw fell off.
His fucking nose disappears. Like, it's a whole fucking thing. I don't like it.
No.
I don't want to do it.
No.
Go to our Patreon, because we got plenty of extra bonus episodes there if you like what we do, and you absolutely should. We're fantastic at it. Visit us on your socials. Give us a nice review if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts or your podcaster of choice. We try to answer your questions on social media. If you see us come up in your feed, maybe, send it along to a friend, boost it a little bit. We can always use that help, and we gratefully appreciate it. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television on my newsletter. It's GinaWatchesThings.substack.com, and I am on most social medias, predominantly Threads, Instagram, and TikTok under Gina Does Things.
Do it today. People, check it out. Don't worry. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
High Five Casino lets you play your favorite slot and live table games like blackjack with the chance to redeem for real cash prizes. High Five Casino has a giant selection of over 1,200 games, including hundreds of exclusive games only found on High Five Casino. It's always free to play, and free coins are given out every 4 hours. Ready to have your own high five moment? Visit highfivecasino.com. That's high, the number 5, casino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply.